The station called Horizon's Edge floated in the darkness between three star systems. It was old, built long before any species alive today could remember. The metal walls had seen 1,000 treaties signed and 1,000 treaties broken. Today, it would see one more attempt at peace. Ambassador Yuna stepped off her transport ship and felt the cold air of the station hit her face. She was tall for a Valorian, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes that could see in almost complete darkness. Her people were traders and diplomats, not warriors. They had built their civilization on words and agreements, not weapons and blood. Behind her, 4 figures in dark gray uniforms followed quietly. They were humans. Yuna had read about humans before this mission. They were a young species, having joined the galactic community only 200 years ago. Their home world, Earth, was a small blue planet in an unremarkable corner of the galaxy. Most species considered them primitive. They were emotional, short-lived, and seemed to lack the natural advantages that other species possessed. No claws, no thick armor, no ability to survive in vacuum. Just soft skin and strange, forward-facing eyes. The leader of the human escort approached her. He was not tall by human standards, with a calm face and black hair cut short. His uniform bore the name Park Do-hyun and the symbol of Earth's United Defense Force. "Ambassador," he said, his voice quiet and steady. "My team is ready to serve. We will keep you safe." Yuna forced a polite smile. "Thank you, Captain. I am sure your presence will be noticed." She did not say what she truly thought. The Galactic Council had promised her protection for this mission. The Keth Empire had conquered 17 star systems in 3 cycles. They killed millions without hesitation. They burned entire planets. And the Council sent her 4 humans with small weapons and soft bodies. It felt like a joke. A very bad joke. Captain Do-hyun seemed to notice her doubt. Something flickered in his dark eyes, but he said nothing. He simply nodded and gestured to his team. "Lieutenant Kim So-mi, tactical specialist," he said, pointing to a woman with sharp features and quick eyes that seemed to scan everything around them. "Sergeant Baek Ji-woo, communications and electronic warfare." A younger man with gentle features nodded respectfully. "And Corporal Choi Hana, heavy weapons." The last was a woman with broad shoulders and a scar across her chin. She carried a large case on her back that clicked softly when she moved. Yuna looked at them and felt her heart sink further. 4 soldiers. Against the Keth. They walked through the station's corridors toward the negotiation chamber. Other species moved around them, and Yuna noticed how they looked at the humans. Some looked confused. Some looked amused. A group of Talthian merchants laughed openly, their long necks bending as they pointed at the small human team. "Are those the famous Earth warriors?" one of them asked loudly. "They look like food, not fighters." The humans did not react. They kept walking, their eyes forward, their steps steady. Yuna felt embarrassed for them. "I apologize for their rudeness," she said quietly to Captain Do-hyun. He shrugged slightly. "We are used to it, Ambassador. Opinions change over time." There was something in his voice that Yuna could not understand. Not anger, not shame. Something else. Something patient. They reached the negotiation chamber, a large circular room with a high ceiling and windows that showed the stars outside. In the center was a round table with seats for both delegations. Valorian staff were already preparing documents and refreshments. Yuna took her place and reviewed her notes one final time. She had spent months preparing for this moment. The Keth Empire was expanding rapidly, and if they were not stopped through diplomacy, the entire sector would fall into war. Her people, the Valorians, would be among the first to suffer. She had to succeed. There was no other choice. The doors on the far side of the chamber opened with a heavy sound, and the Keth delegation entered. Yuna had seen images of the Keth before, but seeing them in person was different. They were massive, nearly 3 meters tall, with thick gray skin covered in natural armor plates. Their eyes were small and red, and their mouths were full of sharp teeth designed for tearing meat. Each one carried weapons openly. Even in a place meant for peace. At the front was Warlord Grath, the leader of the Keth expansion fleet. He was the largest of them all, with scars covering his face and arms. He wore the bones of his enemies as decorations on his armor. When he walked, the floor seemed to shake. Grath looked around the room slowly. His red eyes passed over the Valorian staff, over Ambassador Una, and finally stopped on the 4 humans standing quietly near the wall. For a long moment, he stared at them. Then he laughed. The sound was deep and terrible, like rocks grinding together. The other Keth joined him, their laughter filling the chamber. "This is your protection?" Grath said, his voice booming. "These small, weak creatures? The Council sends insects to guard against the storm." He walked closer to Captain Do-Yun, towering over the human by more than a meter. Grath's shadow covered all 4 of them. "I have killed thousands of warriors from 100 species," Grath said, leaning down until his face was close to Do-Yun's. "I have torn apart creatures 10 times your size with my bare hands. Tell me, little human, do you truly believe you can protect anyone from me?" The room was silent. Everyone watched. Captain Do-Yun looked up at the massive warlord. His expression did not change. His breathing did not quicken. He simply met those red eyes with his own dark ones and said nothing. After a long moment, he spoke. His voice was calm, almost soft. "We are here to ensure the ambassador's safety during negotiations, Warlord. Nothing more, nothing less." Grath snorted, a blast of hot breath hitting the human's face. "Then you are here to die. Because when these negotiations fail, and they will fail, I will personally crush your soft bodies into dust." He turned away, laughing again, and took his seat at the table. Una watched Captain Do-Yun carefully. She expected to see fear. She expected to see anger. She expected to see something, but the human's face showed nothing at all. He simply returned to his position by the wall and stood there, hands clasped behind his back, watching everything with those quiet, patient eyes. Lieutenant Somi leaned close to him and whispered something too soft for Una to hear. Whatever it was, Do-Yun responded with a small nod, for reasons she could not explain. That tiny gesture made Una feel something strange. Not hope exactly, but something close to it. Something that told her these humans were not as simple as they appeared. But that was foolish, she told herself. They were just 4 soldiers from a primitive world. What could they possibly do against the Keth? The negotiations began badly and grew worse with every passing hour. Ambassador Una presented her proposals with care and precision. She offered trade agreements, territorial compromises, shared resource rights. She spoke of peace and prosperity for all species. She appealed to reason, to mutual benefit, to the future. Warlord Grath listened to none of it. He made his demands clear from the start. The Valorians would surrender 12 additional star systems. They would pay tribute to the Keth Empire every cycle. They would disband their defense forces completely. And they would publicly acknowledge Keth superiority over all other species. "These are not negotiations," Una said, keeping her voice steady despite the anger building inside her. "These are terms of surrender." Grath smiled, showing all his teeth. "Yes, they are. You can accept them now, or you can accept them later, after we have burned your worlds to ash. The choice is yours." The first session ended with nothing accomplished. Una returned to her quarters, feeling exhausted and afraid. The humans followed silently, taking positions outside her door. She could not sleep that night. She kept thinking about her homeworld, about the cities where she had grown up, about the people who trusted her to save them. If she failed here, they would all die when morning came. She returned to the negotiation chamber with new proposals, new ideas, new hopes. And again, Grath rejected everything without consideration. This pattern continued for 3 days. Each session was the same. Una would offer reasonable terms, and Grath would laugh at her. He seemed to enjoy watching her struggle. He made cruel jokes about Valorian weakness. He described in detail what his fleet would do to her people. On the third day, during a break in the negotiations, Yuna walked through the station's corridors to clear her mind. The humans followed at a respectful distance, always watching, always silent. She found herself near an observation window and stopped to look at the stars. Somewhere out there, her people were waiting for news. They were hoping for peace. They had no idea how badly things were going. Ambassador. She turned to find Sergeant Jiwoo standing nearby. He had a kind face, she noticed. Gentle eyes. Not the face of a warrior. You should not be alone, ma'am, he said. It is not safe. Yuna shook her head. I needed to think. I am failing, Sergeant. The Keth have no interest in peace. They came here only to humiliate us before they attack. Jiwoo was quiet for a moment. Then he said, May I speak freely, Ambassador? She nodded. In our history, there was a leader named Sun Tzu. He wrote that appearing weak when you are strong is a great advantage. Jiwoo paused. The Keth believe they are strong. They believe everyone else is weak. Sometimes that belief can be a mistake. Yuna did not understand what he meant, but before she could ask, there was a sound behind them. Heavy footsteps. She turned and felt her blood freeze. Warlord Grass stood in the corridor, blocking the path back to the main areas. 2 of his guards were with him, but he waved them back. His red eyes were fixed on Yuna. Ambassador, he said, his voice low and dangerous. I think we need to have a private conversation. Warlord, this is not appropriate, Yuna said, trying to keep her voice steady. We should return to the chamber. Grath moved fast, faster than something so large should be able to move. In an instant, he was in front of her, grabbing her arm with his massive hand. His claws dug into her flesh, and she cried out in pain. I am tired of your weak words, Grath growled, his face close to hers. I am tired of pretending this is a negotiation. Your people will submit, or they will burn, and you will carry my message back to them personally. After I teach you what happens to those who waste my time. Blood ran down Yuna's arm. The pain was terrible. She could not break free. She could not even move. Then a hand appeared on Grath's wrist. A human hand. Captain Dillion had moved so quietly that no one had noticed him approach. He stood beside the massive warlord, one hand gripping Grath's wrist, his dark eyes looking up without any trace of fear. Release her, he said. Grath laughed, a short, sharp sound. Or what, little creature? You will bite me with your tiny teeth. Release her now, Dillion repeated. His voice did not change. It remained calm, quiet, steady. Grath tried to pull his hand away. He could not. The warlord's eyes widened. He pulled harder. Still, the human's grip held. And then, slowly, Dillion began to squeeze. The sound was small at first. A creak, then a crack. Grath's face twisted with shock and pain. This was impossible. Humans were weak. Humans were soft. No human should be able to hurt a Keth warrior. But Dillion was hurting him. His grip was like metal, crushing the bones beneath the warlord's armored skin. You have 5 seconds to remove your hand from the ambassador, Dillion said. Still calm, still quiet. Or I remove it from your body. For the first time, Yuna saw something in Grath's red eyes that she had never expected to see. Fear. He released her arm and stepped back quickly, cradling his injured wrist. His guards moved forward, reaching for their weapons. Touch those weapons and you die, said a voice from behind them. Lieutenant Somi stood in the corridor, her small sidearm pointed at the guards. Her hand was perfectly steady. Her eyes were cold. We are very good shots, she added. Much better than you might expect. Sergeant Jiwoo had moved to cover another angle. Corporal Hannah stood further back, and Yuna noticed that the large case she always carried was now open, revealing a weapon that looked like it could destroy a small vehicle. The Keth guards looked at each other uncertainly. They were warriors. They had killed many enemies. But something in the way these humans stood, something in their eyes, made them hesitate. Grath recovered quickly. He straightened up and let out a snarl. "You dare threaten me? Do you know who I am? I command the greatest fleet in the sector." "We know exactly who you are," Do-Yoon said. He had not moved from his position. "And we know what you are capable of. But you should also know what we are capable of." He took one step forward, and Grath actually stepped back. "Return to your ship, warlord. Think carefully about what you do next. Because if you harm the ambassador, if you harm anyone under our protection, there will be consequences." Grath stared at him for a long moment. His face twisted with rage and something else. Confusion, perhaps. Or doubt. Finally, he turned and walked away, his guards following quickly. When they were gone, Yuna collapsed against the wall. Her arm was bleeding badly. The pain was making her head spin. Corporal Hana was beside her in an instant, pulling out a medical kit. "Hold still, Ambassador. I will take care of this." As Hana treated her wound, Yuna looked at Captain Do-Hyun. He stood watching the corridor where the Keth had disappeared, his expression unchanged. "How did you do that?" Yuna whispered. "How did you hurt him? The Keth are the strongest species in the sector. Their bones are like stone." Do-Hyun looked at her. For just a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Something that might have been a smile. "Ambassador," he said quietly, "humans are not as weak as we appear. We simply prefer that others believe we are." Before she could respond, Sergeant Jiwoo's communicator made a sound. He listened for a moment, then looked at Do-Hyun with a grim expression. "Captain, the Keth fleet is powering up weapons. Grath has declared negotiations over. He says he will destroy the station within the hour." Yuna felt her heart stop. No, this cannot be happening. We are all going to die." Captain Do-Hyun placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "No, Ambassador. We are not." He pulled out his own communicator and spoke into it calmly. "Actual, this is Shadow Lead. Protocol Hammer is authorized. Confirm targets locked." A voice responded, clear and steady. "Targets confirmed. Awaiting your signal, Captain." Yuna stared at him. "What is Protocol Hammer? What targets? What are you talking about?" Do-Hyun met her eyes. And this time, he did smile. It was small and cold and utterly confident. "Ambassador, I think it is time you learned the truth about humanity." The station shook as Warlord Grath's fleet moved into attack formation. Through the observation windows, Ambassador Yuna could see the Keth warships spreading out like predators surrounding their prey. 47 vessels, each one bristling, with weapons designed to tear through metal and flesh without mercy. She had seen recordings of Keth attacks before. They did not simply destroy their enemies. They made examples of them. They left wreckage floating in space as warnings to others. They broadcast the screams of the dying across all channels so that everyone would know what awaited those who resisted. And now, she was about to experience it firsthand. "We need to evacuate," Yuna said, her voice shaking. "The station has emergency transports. We can at least save some people." "There is no time," Lieutenant Somi said calmly. She was checking her weapon, her movement smooth and practiced. "The Keth have already locked on to all the shuttle bays. Anything that tries to leave will be destroyed. Then we are trapped." Yuna felt her legs weaken. She sat down heavily on a nearby bench. "We are all going to die here." Captain Do-Hyun crouched in front of her, his dark eyes meeting hers. "Ambassador, I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" "Trust you?" Yuna looked at him with desperation. "You are 4 soldiers with small weapons. There are 47 warships out there. What can you possibly do?" "Watch," he said simply. "And learn?" He stood and walked to the center of the observation deck. The other 3 humans joined him, forming a small group that seemed almost ridiculous in its insignificance. 4 people against an armada. Sergeant Jiwoo pulled out a communication device larger than the one Do-Hyun had used earlier. He began working on it quickly, his fingers moving across the controls. Open channel established. Jiwoo said. Broadcasting on all frequencies. Do-hyun nodded. Put me through. Jiwoo handed him a small microphone, and Do-hyun spoke into it. His voice carried across space to every ship in the Keth fleet, to the station systems, to anyone listening within range. Keth vessels, this is Captain Park Do-hyun of Earth Defense Force Detachment Sigma 7. You have 60 seconds to power down your weapons and surrender. This is your only warning. For a moment, there was silence. Then the speakers crackled with Warlord Graz's booming laughter. You dare threaten us. 4 insects threatening the might of the Keth Empire. Grath's voice dripped with amusement. I was going to kill you quickly, human, but now I think I will keep you alive. I will make you watch as I destroy everything you tried to protect. Then, when you have seen enough suffering, I will tear you apart with my own hands. The channel, filled with the laughter of other Keth commanders, all of them finding the humans' threat hilarious. Do-hyun did not respond. He simply looked at Jiwoo and said, Start the countdown. Jiwoo nodded. 60 seconds. 59. 58. Yuna watched the Keth fleet through the window. Their weapons were glowing now, charging for the first strike. In less than a minute, beams of destruction would tear through the station. Everyone aboard would die. 45, 44, 43. She turned to Corporal Hana, who was calmly assembling her large weapon, connecting parts together with practiced efficiency. The woman caught Yuna's look and gave her a slight smile. Do not worry, Ambassador. The captain knows what he is doing. How can you be so calm? Yuna demanded. We are about to die. 30, 29, 28. Lieutenant Somi walked over to stand beside Yuna. Ambassador, may I share something with you? What could you possibly share that matters right now? Somi looked out at the Keth fleet, her expression thoughtful. When humans first reached the stars, every species we met underestimated us. We were small. We were soft. We had no natural weapons, no armor, no special abilities. We were treated as primitives at best, prey at worst. 15, 14, 13. So we learned to hide, Somi continued. We learned to watch. We learned to study our potential enemies while they laughed at us. We let them believe we were weak, because that belief made them careless. 10, 9, 8. Somi leaned close to Yuna and whispered, and while they were busy feeling superior, we were building. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The countdown ended. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then space itself seemed to tear apart. Yuna had traveled through fold space before. She knew what it looked like when ships emerged from faster-than-light travel. It was usually a small flash, a brief distortion. Then the vessel appeared. This was different. This was like watching the universe break open. 12. Massive shapes emerged from fold space simultaneously, appearing in perfect formation around the Keth fleet. They were enormous, dwarfing even the largest Keth warships. Their hulls were dark gray, almost black, covered in angular shapes that made them look like predators from some ancient nightmare. Weapons bristled from every surface, more weapons than Yuna had ever seen on any ship. They were human ships. What? Yuna could not find words. What is this? Earth's first expeditionary fleet, Captain Do-hyun said quietly. They have been here for 3 days, waiting in stealth mode 2 light minutes away. 3 days? But your transport was so small. There was no fleet. We would have detected them. Do-hyun looked at her with those calm, patient eyes. Ambassador, humans have been preparing for this moment for a very long time. Did you really think we would send our people into danger without protection? Through the speakers, Yuna could hear chaos erupting on the Keth command channels. Confused shouts, panicked orders, screams of disbelief. The laughter had stopped completely. Grath's voice cut through the noise, rough with shock. All ships, target the human vessels. Destroy them immediately. The Keth fleet began to move, their weapons turning toward the newcomers. Energy beams lanced out toward the nearest human ship. The beams hit the human, Vessel shields and simply vanished, absorbed completely. The ship did not even shudder. Then the humans returned fire. Yuna had never seen anything like it. The human weapons were beyond anything in the galactic catalog. Focus beams that cut through Keth armor like it was paper. Kinetic rounds that moved so fast they were invisible until they struck. Electronic warfare that blinded sensors and shut down targeting systems. The Keth flagship, Grath's own vessel, was the first to fall. A single beam from the lead human ship pierced straight through its center, and the massive warship broke apart in a silent explosion of flame and debris. No, Yuna whispered. This is not possible. But it was happening. Right before her eyes. The greatest fleet in the sector was being torn to pieces. Keth ships tried to flee, but the human vessels were faster. They tried to surrender, broadcasting desperate pleas for mercy, and those ships were spared. But any vessel that continued to fight was destroyed without hesitation. The battle, if it could be called a battle, lasted exactly 5 minutes. When it was over, the Keth Armada no longer existed. 31 ships destroyed completely. 16 surrendered and were being boarded by human marines. 0 human casualties. Captain Do-yoon turned away from the window and looked at his team. Sergeant Ji-woo, please inform command that the situation is under control. Lieutenant Somi, coordinate with the fleet for prisoner transfer. Corporal Ha, secure the station's critical systems. They moved to obey immediately, calm and professional, as if they had not just witnessed the destruction of an empire's military might. Yuna could only stare at Captain Do-yoon, her mind struggling to understand what she had just seen. Who are you? She finally asked. What are you? Do-yoon considered the question for a moment. We are humans, Ambassador. We are exactly what we have always been. You simply never knew what that meant. He offered her his hand. Now, shall we return to the negotiation chamber? I believe there are some new terms to discuss. The debris field stretched across thousands of kilometers of space. Twisted metal, frozen gases, and the broken remains of what had been the most feared fleet in the sector drifted silently in the void. Small fires still burned inside some of the larger pieces, fed by oxygen escaping from ruptured compartments. Ambassador Yuna stood at the observation window for a long time, watching the wreckage. She could not make herself look away. Just hours ago, those ships had been alive with thousands of Keth warriors. Now they were nothing but garbage floating in the dark, and the humans had done this in 5 minutes. Behind her, the station was filled with activity. Human marines had arrived in transport shuttles, wearing armor that made them look like metal giants. They moved through the corridors with quiet efficiency, securing areas, treating wounded, processing the Keth prisoners who had surrendered. Yuna watched them work and noticed something strange. The prisoners were not being abused. They were not being humiliated or tortured. Human medics were actually treating injured Keth, patching wounds and providing care. One Marine was helping a limping Keth warrior to a medical station, supporting the massive alien's weight without complaint. This was not how conquerors behaved. This was not how powerful species treated those they defeated. Captain Do-hyun appeared beside her, his reflection visible in the dark glass of the window. He said nothing, simply standing with her in silence. I do not understand, Yuna finally said. You destroyed them completely. You have more power than any species I have ever known. But you are treating them with kindness. Why? Do-hyun considered the question. Would cruelty bring back the people they killed? Would torture undo the damage they caused? No, but it would show strength. It would make others fear you. Fear is a weak foundation for peace, Do-hyun said. It requires constant reinforcement. The moment you appear weak, everyone you terrorized will turn against you. We learned this lesson many times in our history. He turned to face her directly. We want allies, Ambassador, not slaves. We want trading partners, not tribute. We want a galaxy where species work together, not one where everyone lives in fear of the strongest predator. But you could rule everything, Yuna said. With ships like those, with weapons like those, no one could stop you. You could build an empire greater than the Keth ever imagined. Yes, we could. Dayun's voice was soft. And in 100 years, someone would build better weapons. Someone would find our weaknesses. Someone would do to us what we did to the Keth today. Empires always fall, Ambassador. The ones built on fear fall hardest. He paused, looking out at the debris field. Humans have built many empires in our history. We have conquered and enslaved and destroyed. We know exactly what that path leads to. Blood and ashes and grief without end. We decided, when we reached the stars, that we would try something different. Yuna was quiet for a long moment, processing his words. The Council will want explanations, she finally said. Every species in the galaxy just witnessed your power. They will be afraid. We expected that. We have prepared statements, demonstrations of peaceful intent, offers of cooperation. It will take time to build trust. We are patient. Patient. Yuna almost laughed. You hid an entire fleet in this system for 3 days. You let the Keth think you were weak while you prepared their destruction. You watched Graf insult you and threaten you, and you said nothing. Yes, I suppose patient is one word for it. Lieutenant Somi approached them with a data tablet. Captain, the fleet commander wants to speak with you. And we have updates on the Keth situation. Dahin took the tablet and reviewed the information. His expression remained neutral, but Yuna noticed a slight tightening around his eyes. What is it? She asked. Warlord Grath survived, Dahin said. His escape pod was recovered by one of our ships. He's injured but alive. Yuna felt a chill run through her. He will want revenge. As long as he lives, he will be a threat. Yes, he will. Dahan handed the tablet back to Silmi. Have him brought to the station. Medical bay first, then a secure holding area. You are not going to execute him. Yuna was surprised. After everything he has done? After the millions he has killed? That is not our decision to make alone. Grath committed crimes against many species. They deserve a voice in determining his fate. The Valorian Council will demand his death. Then they can request a trial. They can present evidence. They can argue for whatever punishment they believe is just. Dayun's voice was firm. But we will not simply execute him in the dark. That is not who we are. Yuna shook her head slowly. You are the strangest conquerors I have ever met. We are not conquerors at all, Dahyun replied. We are protectors. There is a difference. The next several hours were filled with activity. Human diplomats arrived from the fleet, working with Yuna to draft new agreements. The terms were remarkably fair. The humans asked for nothing for themselves except trade relations and mutual defense agreements. They were not demanding territory, tribute, or submission. They were simply asking for friendship. Why did you do this? Yuna asked Do-Yoon during a brief break in the discussions. Why did you risk your ships, your people, for us? The Valorians have nothing you need. We are not powerful or wealthy. We are just traders and diplomats. Do-Yoon sat down across from her, looking tired for the first time since she had met him. 6 years ago, a Valorian trading ship entered Earth's home system, he said. They were the first aliens to visit our world. They could have exploited us. They could have taken advantage of our ignorance about galactic politics. Instead, they offered fair trade. They shared knowledge freely. They warned us about potential dangers, including the Keth. He smiled slightly. The captain of that ship was named Ambassador Yuna's father. Yuna stared at him in shock. My father? But he died years ago. He never told me. He probably did not think it was important. To him, it was simply the right thing to do. He treated us with respect when no one else would have. Do-Him leaned forward. Humans have long memories, Ambassador. We remember those who helped us when we were weak. And we repay our debts. Tears formed in Yuna's large, dark eyes. She had always known her father was a good man, But she never imagined his kindness had reached so far. He would have been proud, she whispered, to see what you have become. We hope so. Do-hyun stood and offered her his hand again. Now, shall we continue building this new future? I believe there is still much work to be done. Yuna took his hand and rose to her feet. Yuna took his hand and rose to her feet. For the first time since arriving at Horizon's Edge, she felt something she had almost forgotten. Hope, real hope. Not the desperate kind that came from ignoring reality, but the solid kind that came from seeing good people doing the right thing. She followed Captain Do-hyun back to the negotiation chamber, where human and Valorian diplomats were already drafting the framework for a new alliance. The first of many, she suspected. The galaxy would never be the same after today. The Kef Empire had fallen. The humans had revealed their true strength. Everything was changing, but as Yuna watched the humans work, treating everyone with respect and fairness, she realized that maybe the change would not be so frightening after all. Maybe. For the first time in galactic history, the strongest species would also be the kindest. It was a strange thought. But after everything she had witnessed, she was beginning to believe it might be true. 3 months had passed since the battle at Horizon's Edge. The galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The Kef Empire collapsed within weeks of Warlord Graf's defeat. Without their fleet, without their feared leader, the remaining Kef commanders turned on each other. Civil war tore their homeworld apart while the systems they had conquered rose up in rebellion. The 17 star systems they had claimed were now free. Refugees who had fled Kef brutality were returning home. Cities were being rebuilt. Families were reuniting. And at the center of it all, quietly helping but never demanding credit, where the humans. Ambassador Yuna stood in the Great Hall of the Galactic Council, surrounded by representatives from over 200 species. The chamber was ancient and beautiful, its walls carved with the symbols of every civilization that had ever joined the council. Today, a new symbol would be added to those walls. The symbol of Earth. Captain Park Do-hyun stood at the front of the hall, wearing a formal uniform for the first time since Yuna had known him. His team was with him: Lieutenant Kim So-mi, Sergeant Baek Ji-woo, and Corporal Choi Hana. They looked uncomfortable in the ceremonial clothing, but they stood tall and straight, facing the assembled representatives without any sign of nervousness. The council chairman, an ancient being from a species so old that no one remembered their true name, rose to speak. His voice was weak with age, but carried clearly through the chamber. We are gathered here to honor those who have shown exceptional courage and virtue in service to the galactic community. The humans of Earth Defense Force Detachment Sigma 7 faced an overwhelming enemy. They did not run. They did not surrender. They protected those who could not protect themselves. He paused, looking directly at Diane. And when they had the power to conquer, they chose to heal. When they could have taken revenge, they chose mercy. When they could have demanded submission, they asked only for friendship. The chairman lifted a golden medal, shaped like a spiral galaxy with a bright star at its center. I present to Captain Park Do-hyun and his team the Order of the Unified Stars, the highest honor the Galactic Council can bestow. May this award remind all species that true strength is not measured in weapons or ships, but in the wisdom to know when not to use them. The chamber erupted in applause. Representatives from dozens of species rose to their feet, their various forms of approval filling the air. Some clapped. Some made sounds. Some changed colors. But they all expressed the same thing: respect. Do-hyun accepted the medal with a small bow. When the applause finally quieted, he stepped forward to speak. I am honored by this recognition, he said, his voice calm as always. But I must share this honor with many others. With the crews of the 1st Expeditionary Fleet who risked their lives to protect this station. With the diplomats who worked through the night to build new agreements. With the medical teams who treated friend and enemy alike. He paused, looking out at the assembly, and with Ambassador Yuna of the Valorian Federation, whose courage and determination brought us all together in the first place. Without her, there would have been no negotiations. Without her, we would never have had the chance to show who we truly are. Yuna felt her face warm as hundreds of eyes turned toward her. She had not expected this. She had done nothing special. She had just tried to find peace, and she had failed. The humans were the ones who had saved everyone, but Do-yoon was not finished. Many of you wonder about humanity, he continued. You wonder if we are a threat. You wonder if our power will corrupt us. You wonder if, in time, we will become just another empire seeking to dominate others. The chamber was absolutely silent. I cannot promise that humans will never make mistakes. We are not perfect. We have made terrible errors in our history, caused suffering that still haunts us. But I can tell you what we have learned from that history. He looked around the room slowly, meeting eyes of every shape and color. On our world, we spent thousands of years fighting each other. We built weapons that could destroy everything we loved. We came close to ending ourselves many times. But we did not end. We survived. And we learned something important. His voice grew stronger. War is easy. Anyone with enough weapons can destroy. Children can knock down what takes years to build. There is no special skill in causing pain. He paused. But building something? Creating something that lasts? Protecting something precious? That takes real strength. That takes patience and wisdom and the courage to choose difficult paths when easier ones are available. He held up the medal the council had given him. This honor is not for destroying the Keth fleet. That was simple. Point and fire. 5 minutes and it was done. He lowered the medal. This honor is for what came after. For treating the wounded. For sparing those who surrendered. For refusing to become the monsters we had defeated. He stepped back and looked at his team. Somi, Jiwoo, and Hana. 4 soldiers who had stood between an empire and an innocent diplomat. 4 people who could have been crushed in seconds, but had never shown fear. We came to Horizon's Edge as an escort. 4 soldiers protecting 1 ambassador. That was our mission. He smiled slightly. I think we accomplished it. Laughter rippled through the chamber. Even some of the more serious species allowed themselves expressions of amusement. When the ceremony ended, the representatives gathered in small groups to talk and celebrate. Yuna found herself standing with Do-yoon near one of the great windows, looking out at the stars. What will you do now? She asked. Return to Earth? For a while, he said. There will be debriefings, reports, meetings with leaders who want to understand what happened. Then probably another assignment. Another ambassador to protect? Perhaps. Or perhaps something else. The galaxy is changing, Ambassador. There will be much work to do. Yuna nodded slowly. The Keth were not the only threat out there. There are other empires, other dangers. Other species who believe that power gives them the right to take what they want. Yes, there are. Do-yoon looked at her with those calm, dark eyes. And when they threaten the innocent, they will find humans standing in their way. Every time. Without fail. That is a bold promise. It is not a promise. It is simply who we are. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the stars. My father would have liked to, Yuna said quietly. He always said that the measure of a species was not how they treated equals, but how they treated those weaker than themselves. He sounds like a wise man. He was. Yuna smiled at the memory. He believed that kindness was the greatest strength. That compassion was more powerful than any weapon. Most people thought he was foolish. And now? Yuna looked at the human captain, at this small, soft creature who had somehow changed the course of galactic history. Now I know he was right. Across the hall, Lieutenant Somi was being interviewed by reporters from a dozen different species. Sergeant Jiwoo was deep in conversation with a group of engineers who wanted to know more about human technology. Corporal Hana was teaching a young alien child how to arm wrestle, losing dramatically on purpose to make the child laugh. They were just 4 soldiers. 4 ordinary humans from an ordinary world. But they had done something extraordinary. They had shown the galaxy that power did not have to mean cruelty. That strength did not have to mean domination. That the greatest victories were not won through destruction, but through compassion. The Diplomat had arrived with a human escort. The war had lasted 5 minutes. And the galaxy would never forget the lesson they had learned that day. Humans do not start wars. They end them. And when the last shot is fired and the smoke clears, they help rebuild what was broken, heal what was wounded, and create something better than what came before. That was humanity's gift to the stars. That was what it truly meant to be strong.